kind of purposely asked the guys to maybe pull back a little bit after what had happened on Friday? Obviously, you're not going to go into like the X's and O details, but is it more about like pinching and surfing up in the neutral zone?
The big we didn't pull back. It's not pulling back because I'm glad you asked it that way, because I do not want to speak that way to them, and I didn't. We needed to reset just when we don't have the puck, which way we're leaning. Are we still leaning when we don't have the puck? Are we still leaning into the offensive side of it, or do we see that it changed sides? We're not sitting in there flat hoping something happens over. We're starting back. Starting back to me, people call it tracking, back checking, reloading. I call it starting back. The first thing something has to click in your head. I need to start back, because that split second of you leaning that way instead of the offensive way when things aren't going well gets you into position to where you're tracking the proper way. And we weren't lazy against the Rangers. We were a second too late against a fast team that plays fast, and we chased them. We weren't above them. And showed tape for a half hour or so, and it's self-explanatory. All we were doing, we were looking at their numbers behind their jerseys, chasing them into our end zone. And so just a small adjustment as far as leaning the wrong way. And that's anticipating versus cheating. I thought we cheated against the Rangers.
You mentioned last month when we were talking about the adjustments you guys were making to the offensive approach and opening things up a bit. You mentioned that the struggle, and this is a big thing that you're going to have to keep note of, is you don't want them to give back the gains that they made defensively
Absolutely.
Last season. Was Saturday, in a way, potentially a tipping point game where you saw some bad habits creep back in and you needed to see the team show that was just a one-game anomaly?
And that we knew this would happen. I'm surprised it's taken us 20 games to have to kind of reset them. Because how many times did I talk to you guys last year? Defense, away from the puck, get above the puck, stick on puck, close out. All we talked about was defense, because I think it needed to happen. We needed to get that foundation straightened out. And when you come in as a second year, you need to respect the athlete that they bought into that. And now we need to get on to the other part of it. And that's how we've approached this. That's how we've changed our language, how we coach them this year. Is like I told them, I'm not sure what meeting or in between periods, how many times have I talked about defense this year compared to last year? Very few words used on it, because I think they've defended well this year too. But when you get into the sloppiness and throughout the lineup, the cheating, it needs to be reset. Not a big deal. It's not yelling. It's not benching people. It's just saying, okay, let's get back to this part of it. We know how to do it. We've done it to this point. Let's just get back to it. Perfect timing was against the Islanders, because you're playing in the trenches. You know what type of game it's going to be. And we gave up some chances, and we're going to, but I thought we were so much better being above the puck.
20 games into the season, Travis Sanheim's at 26 minutes a game. That sort of says what you think of him. But if you can assess his play now versus last season, where have been the biggest gains, improvements, whatever you've seen different about his game this season?
It's not his play. It's his mindset. Your play doesn't change unless you change your mindset. He's a difference maker now. Last year he watched. He watched, and that's what aggravated me about him is all the foot speed and the abilities and the length, everything about him. And he watched. He's not watching this year. People are watching him. And so that isn't a change in his skill. That isn't a change of anything physical. To me, it's mental. And I think that from an outsider looking in, because I haven't had the discussion with him, but watching him each and every day, the weight he put on, the proper weight he put on, I just think he feels it. And that's what he shows as a player right now.
So to the mindset, when he says after the Ranger game, he has that giveaway on the Kreider goal, he says, I've made that play 99 times out of 100. I'm going to keep making that play. That's what you're looking for. That's the kind of mindset.
Did you see him after he made the? I watched him. I didn't say one word to him, but I watched him, and I knew he was going to be okay. All he did was skate to the bench. He knew it was a huge mistake, and he got ready for his next shift. There wasn't a change in body language. There wasn't a change in his attitude. He has, whatever he did as far as workout in the summer, he's put on some weight, but he has worked on his mind. For me, he has changed how he thinks of himself and what he can be as a player, and that is so powerful.
Now, do you have that conversation with him during the off season, in season, like to get his mindset where, because he's not a boisterous, he's not a type A personality.
I had that conversation with him 15, 20 times during the year last year. It was a simple conversation, just what I'm telling you. You're watching. I need you to try to make a difference. I had that conversation, I don't know how many times last year. I didn't need to talk to him about it in the summer. I really didn't. If I had to talk to him in the summer, on my word. And no. And so that's where I have a true respect for him. It didn't need to be touched upon. He took it upon himself in the summer and probably with a pretty good chip on his shoulder after hearing that he's going to be moved. And all the stuff I talked to him about during last year, and not in a way where it's me just coming at him. I was just totally honest with him, man to man, as far as what I thought. I think he bundled that up and said, okay. And it's such it's a great model for athletes in any sport about the mind, because he didn't change anything physical other than adding a little weight. It's his mind that has taken over and turned him into what he's become.
John, how deadly do you think your decisions are going to be on defense now that you have Stahl and Ristolainen healthy and you have some kids too?
Daily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you think Igor Zamula stands with you?
Daily?
Yeah.
You're not getting tomorrow's lineup.
No.
Okay.
Are you hoping to see Zamula's minutes increase though? Are you hoping
Depends.
more on his plate?
It depends. I think Z has improved. I still think he's wildly inconsistent in the games. Which is expected. It's not a bad thing. I can't tell you about his minutes. It depends on how he plays, and it goes down to a conversation we had a week or so ago. We're still trying to win the game too. I'm not going to keep on putting a player out there because we need to develop him when it may affect an outcome of a win or a loss, and it may affect hurting him in developing him. And we talked about that last week. So that's an open-ended question that we'll go to as far as who's in the lineup and how much ice time the younger players get.
John, kind of following up on that, the defense, the fact that you guys have Stahl and Ristolainen now back. You just talked about Travis Sanheim, how much you loved his mindset. He's been doing this all on the right side, on the off side.
Mm-hmm.
With Risto back, you guys have more right-handed shooting defensemen now with Walker.
Mm-hmm.
In your mind, is Sanheim pretty much locked in as he's
Yes.
the right side defenseman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's helped him. I think it's helped him, especially in our end zone offensively. Yeah, he's a right sider. Right? And listen, you never say never. You never know what injuries and situations, but I am playing Yorkie on the left side. And a lot of Sandy playing right side started that way because I don't think we were doing the proper thing with Yorkie as a young defenseman the amount of time he played the right side last year. So he's staying on the left side. That's a really big impotence as far as keeping Sandy right side. We'll see. But I think I like him as a right side defenseman right now. I think he's more and more comfortable with it.
When you look at the standings right now, obviously there's a lot of teams jumbled up. It's the Rangers and everybody else. Does that surprise you at all that everything seems kind of wide open a quarter in the season here?
Well, I was talking with someone earlier today. I don't know how many great teams are in the league, right? That just stand over everybody else. I think the National Hockey League has wanted to get this to where it's competitive all the time. It's pretty much that, isn't it? And I'm not surprised. I really don't look at the standings that much, and I'm not lying. I don't. I'll start looking at the standings if we feel. I did a little bit last year in that time where we went on a little bit of run. I forget when it was, and I started looking up a little bit. Not now, but I do. I think it's such a competitive league, and there are some really good teams in the league. But each and every night, it's anybody's game, and you look at our I'll just leave it at that because I don't want the league to be pissed off at me.
Well, performance-wise and record-wise, has your team sort of exceeded your preseason expectation, or do you think it'd be your?
I don't have expectations. I didn't have expectations. I don't go into it that way. My expectations is how we perform each and every day, whether it be practice. What do we have coming up next? We got Carolina. I don't get too. I'm just not too much far off of that, because I don't think we're in the position in where we are as an organization to even go about even thinking that way. Expectations. We're just gonna go about it. We have so many things we need to watch and decide as we keep building this. That's my focus on what do you foresee in another few months as far as that player. Does he fit? But the standings and expectations, no. It's just how each and every individual is playing and what our concept looks like. That's why we had to make an adjustment after the Ranger game, because it went off the rails in a very important part of our concept. The other stuff we'll just let it go.
In terms of the mental aspect, is it just the maturity at this point with the players because they kind of experience more?
I don't know. I don't know if you never know how guys mature. I don't know what happened with Sandy. I'm not going to say it's just maturity, because I think he's a pretty mature guy. Going into the first time with me and going through a year with me and us trying to understand one another, he's still he was very mature. Sometimes it's just you get an attitude and you ask yourself for more. That's all I was trying to do last year, was ask for more. That's my job, is to ask for more. And I can ask for it as much as I did practically every day last year. But when it really gets to the point where there's improvement, it's the player asking himself for more. I think that's what's happened. I think Sandy felt he could do more. I felt he was a little disappointed. No matter if he agreed with me in my assessments at the time, I think he was disappointed in his year last year, and I think he wanted to make amends to it. And it isn't with hands and legs. It starts there, and I think he's done a terrific job there.
Do you think it's an overall aspect, though, with the entire team? Because last year, maybe a game like the Rangers, maybe they kind of fall off the rails a little bit and spiral, and now this year they came back and played a 1-0 game against the Islanders, a very good defensive.
I'll answer the question. I think our room's better this year to handle that type of stuff. There's not. I think there's a togetherness that helps each other through it. We did the tape. It was a pretty obvious tape, and I think they were attentive, and I think they knew where they stood as far as what happened in that Ranger game. And listen, give the Rangers some credit too. They're a pretty good team. So we're not going to stop them all the time. We were just too loose, and so I think collectively they help one another. But that it's mental. The mind is such an intriguing thing when it comes to athletes.
Do you think? Sorry.
Last one.
No, go ahead.
Do you think it's also just a comfort with you now, also after your year?
I think for some guys, yes, and for me with them too. I think there's I know I trust more of the guys after spending a year with them, and I hope they trust me. Just like today, this is trusting for me, it's trusting your team. I sit in the weight room when I watch these guys come in, and I just have a feel that, we rode the bus for a few days and grinded out some games, played 3 and 4, family on holidays, and I watched them walk in, and I said, you know what? Do we need to practice? And if you don't trust your team, we're probably on the ice. So I do, and I hope it's a number of situations, it's much better that way. And that's how you develop a relationship. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through experiences.